President Trump ramping up his attacks on what he calls the rigged witch hunt, and his legal team is now saying there's no chance Trump's going to sit down for an interview with the special counsel. Rudy Giuliani making the rounds on TV today, though, going after Robert Mueller and Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen. Here's some of the highlights.
My client didn't do it, and even if he did it, it's not a crime. And I have said that over and over again. Collusion is not a crime. I'm no on a sit down until we get ironed out exactly what they want to do. We'll advise the president. He decides. And he's always leaned in favor of doing it. Right now, I'm telling him, no way. We're not going to do it.
This is interfering with the ability to govern. It's a horrible thing that Mueller is doing. You tell me a lawyer is taping his client, I got to say, sorry, I made a mistake. The guy is unethical. He's a scumbag. He's a horrible person.
My God.
Wow. All right, so, Greg, Rudy's off the leash today, all day. And
he's off the leash, and he's got a little dog in his jaws.
What do you make about the timing and the strategy behind turning loose Rudy?
Well, it's interesting. It's a mess that the more you clean it, the messier it gets. It's like Rudy's strategy is he sees the spill on the carpet and dumps a wheelbarrow of soup over it. But this is part of the package you get from Queens. Trump is from Queens. Nothing goes down without a fight. Nothing goes down without name calling. This isn't Brentwood, Bel Air, or Madison, Wisconsin. These are New Yorkers. You got Giuliani, you got Trump,
and Michael Cohen.
I mean, this is a street. The streets of New York and New Jersey. It's like we're now watching an ongoing episode of The Sopranos.
Wow. But let me ask you something. I don't get you take that one. Did you mean that as a compliment?
Yes, I did. Because I don't believe, I'm very skeptical of the attention that's being devoted to this. And so I can't take it seriously. When the ifs become ours, then I will take it seriously. But right now, it's just a background noise.
I'll give you some R's.
Okay.
So Giuliani says, this is just a few months ago, Cohen is an honest guy I trust.
Yeah.
Now he says, this guy, I don't even want to repeat what he just said, but he thinks he's a lowlife.
Well, because he taped the president's phone calls.
No, on a host of issues here, Jesse, he thinks that the guy is a lowlife.
Yeah, well, I would think that if someone
said what it is, he keeps changing his story. Those are, and you got to think, Greg, would you want Rudy representing you?
This is how life works. Somebody is your low life until they're no longer your low life. Then they're just a low life. But everybody has, oh yeah, he's my jerk. He's a jerk, but he's my jerk. That's how they look at lawyers. There's no. Sorry, Emily. she just looked at me like.
Take it easy. This is full combat here. This is MMA of debate.
All right, now Emily, as a lawyer, what do you think about this? Do you think it's just a PR game that they're playing and trying to discredit the Mueller investigation by saying that all of these things were happening? He stacked the deck with a lot of Democratic lawyers. Mueller has a conflict. I'm not going to be treated fairly. So when the investigation does come to a conclusion, there's a lot of doubt in the air.
That's absolutely one argument for sure, but there's also been a lot of question as to, well, is there even a strategy, right? And certainly what we saw today might be evidence that it's more of a reactionary one, even though it's always trying to get in front of the news cycle, in front of the statement to put out there what the narrative should be. And that's partly, for example, this, should he sit down with Mueller, should he not? Well, that's in part, the strategy behind that would be to help frame that scope, to frame then that narrative, but obviously it has a lot more potential for detriments than not. And I think if I could throw in my 2 cents about Cohen, obviously everyone keeps repeating, well, it's a one-party consent state in New York. Sure. His lawyer says, well, he recorded all of his conversations because it replaced him taking notes, right? And because there's so many, there's almost 200, that speaks to that. But you still have a duty of confidentiality to your client, which is a broader duty than privilege, for example. So you never release it, and you essentially vow not to do harm to your client with their confidence they've given you. And there also kind of begs the question, so the privilege was waived by that tape, and I think that was a smart move because A, the conversation doesn't continue about, well, there must be something in that tape, then there must be something recorded that's nefarious, and also because it takes out the fight. The government could have argued, A, it is privileged, or B, then there's a crime fraud exception. So I certainly think that was wise, but I also think that this either purposeful or not strategy of being mired in the details is a little bit taking us away from the bigger picture.
Giuliani says he wants now all the tapes to be heard. He thinks it helps the president if all the tapes are heard. But I've got to think, as I'm sitting here, Giuliani comes out and, for example, he says, yes, we paid off Stormy. Oh, the president knew about that. Now we learn the president knew about Karen McDougal and that payment. You think, is Is he helping this president?
I just think it's less about the Cohen thing and it's more about Mueller. And now we believe the Mueller thing, if we are to believe Rudy Giuliani, may conclude around September. And the president doesn't want to talk to him, it looks like, at this point.
Well, no, that's not what they said. Rudy Giuliani says he does not want his client to talk to him, but that the president still has always maintained that he wants to talk to him, but all of his advisors are saying no, and now Rudy Giuliani is a hard pass, like not going to happen. I also feel like Mueller might be about, I don't know, completely wrapping up, but it feels to me like every time we get to this sort of ramped up rhetoric, something's coming, and it might be another indictment that you might see, soon. I'm not going to say what I think maybe could happen. I don't know.
Oh, Dana, now you have to say.
No, I'm not going to say it. But here's the other thing about Cohen. This is what's really gross. You know what he used to do is, let's say like you would say, oh, you mind if I tape this? And like, okay, I won't tape it anymore. Pushed it off and put it under. And he had another device that was recording you the entire time. So I think like if you want to be sympathetic towards somebody, like even President Trump, if you don't like him, like that is pretty underhanded as what you were just saying, Emily, like for a lawyer to do that.
Right. And his
to his
credibility
client. And
is
also
shot,
remember,
yeah.
why did the Southern District of New York go to his hotel room, knock on the door and say, we've got to get all this stuff? Is because they had a tip that he was about to destroy evidence. And I imagine that the tapes were probably on the list.
But Cohen,
at least he didn't delete all those emails.
I don't think Cohen was hired for his credibility, do you think? Everybody's got to have a fixer.
That's right. You know what? Emily's a fixer. Call Emily. She'll hook you up. All right. Up next, President Trump's making a major threat against the Democrats who don't want to build the wall. Wait till you hear this.
It's border wall or bust for President Trump. He's now doubling down on his threat to shut down the federal government if Democrats don't agree to fund his wall.
As far as the border is concerned, and personally, if we don't get border security, after many, many years of talk within the United States, I would have no problem doing a shutdown.
But some on the left not budging on the wall. Staunch anti-Trump critic Representative Maxine Waters is launching this new attack on the president.
This president is a bully, and he'll try and intimidate all of us. He's not going to shut down anything. As a matter of fact, people will remember that he said he was going to build this wall, and he was going to make Mexico pay for the wall. They said they weren't going to pay for anything. Now he wants the American citizens to pay for this wall.
Waters to Waters, answer her. What, I thought Mexico was paying for this thing.
They still will. Just be patient.
Oh, okay.
And it's going to cost a lot of pesos because the wall will be built. It'll be beautiful, but it looks like it's going to be built one step at a time.
Oh, is that it?
We had a deal for $25 billion in exchange for legalizing Dreamers. Then we had the S-hole countries comment and the shutdown Schumer situation. They didn't want chain migration and Lotto thrown in there, so it fell apart. I don't think the Senate is going to do this because it takes 60 votes. They can get it through the House, but not through the Senate. And a shutdown during the middle of the fall, there's a whole hand grenade in there. You got to confirm Kavanaugh. You got to run for re-election. I don't even think McConnell wants the wall. He's not a wall guy. And I don't think Ryan wants his lasting, swan song to be a government shutdown, and then losing the House. So I don't think it's going to happen. But, if the Democrats take the House, I mean, they're not only not going to fund the wall, they're going to abolish ICE. So be careful.
Did you just say it's not going to happen?
I don't believe it's going to happen at this point right now.
Okay.
But they're going to have to fund it small piecemeal.
So, Emily, what you get is a situation where Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says, I'm not having a vote on this before the midterms. And Ron Johnson, the head of Homeland Security, says it's a bad idea. And people in the House are saying, hey, we're Republicans, but we're not into this. What do you make of this?
Well, I agree with Jesse, and I personally I really don't like the threat of the government shutdown or using that as a tool. First of all, we're not really getting much out of a lot of people there anyway. And secondly, as a federal attorney, I was a managing attorney and an acting director. So I handed out furlough papers, and the amount of resources it takes to prepare for a furlough and then execute on it and then ramp back up after, it is inordinate. And so to me, it's just a tremendous hemorrhage, again, of those resources. And also, I feel like, we've talked about this, but the southern border issue, we cannot overstate or underestimate the power of the corruption in Mexico and the Central American countries and the transnational drug cartels. And I mean, almost 150 politicians have been murdered in Mexico, ramping up to their election, and then 5 since their election this month. And so to me, again, if we could just have a little bit more dialogue, I think from those the districts along the borders, by those reps, by those southern border senators, and have a more engaging conversation and detailed, then we can get out of that hyperbole, especially coming up to the midterm election. If we can have a collective, cohesive strategy on that with the facts at hand, all those push factors, that would be way more fruitful than just this kind of volleying back and forth about it.
So, Dana, tell us about the politics here, because it sounds like Republicans think the politics are not good heading into the midterms.
Well, they're not exactly sure. So remember, the Democrats tried to shut down the government, and then they, they touched the hot stove, and they're like, okay, wait, never mind. And there were all those embarrassing headlines, and the liberal base was very mad, saying, why aren't you going to fight? And it's because they don't have anything to fight with, and the shutdown was just like a terrible idea. And President Trump absolutely won on that, and he was able to ride that for about 8 weeks afterwards. So, but is it different for President Trump? If he's going to shut down the government, could it turn out better for him? I don't know. He's got really good instincts on politics. He knows that the economy, as good as it is not what's driving voters to the polls. He needs to turn out his base. Will his base turn out for something like this? Possibly. But the other thing about the politics is I don't think that the members of Congress actually believe him. So they're like, oh, he's just threatening to shut down the government. He won't really do it. What I think the president should do, if he can, is to send up to the Congress the exactly what he would veto. And so that they know what they're dealing with, so that they can try to get this done and avoid a government shutdown. But he might be just spoiling for a fight.
He just wants a fight.
Maybe.
But, the Mitch McConnell and the Republican leadership thought they had a deal with the president not to shut down the government over this. And, Greg, 60% of the American people or plus say they don't want a wall.
You know, a government shutdown is the World Cup of politics.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's got all this
penalty kicks.
Yeah, exactly. It's just this massive build-up. Here comes the World Cup, and then you turn it on, and it's boys just kicking a ball around. It's like, and then it ends with penalty kicks.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's just skip the game and get to the penalty kicks. That's the same way. By the way, with the Supreme Court, it's like skip the hearings, just get to the penalty kicks. Trump has had a lot of success so far in a year and a half, 2 years, but this is his birthday pony. Like, he's gotten GDP, unemployment, North Korea, but if he doesn't get that pony, he's not going to be happy. He wants the birthday pony, and he might already have it in the sense that, what have we always said? Who's the wall?
He's the wall.
The wall was always a visual metaphor about an enhanced border security. He's made it an issue. People are listening. He's made it the issue that people weren't talking about. Maybe he'll get something out of it.
Maybe he'll get something out of it.
Yeah,
well, I think his strategy is, I'm going to go after immigrants. This weekend he was
illegal
going
immigrants.
No, he wants to cut legal immigration. Don't forget that.
He wants chain over, lotto over. He wants merit based.
Yeah, and he wants to cut legal. So I'm saying,
would
go after the
legal
immigrants.
Immigration by bringing in the best and the brightest.
Oh, please.
Because we don't bring in some guy's uncle from Zimbabwe.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Or
and then,
Thailand.
I get it. I want Norway. But the other part of it is
no way to Norway.
Go after the NFL players, right? That's what he uses. He wants
to deport NFL players. When did this happen?
Deport them?
Yeah.
No. He just wants to mock them and use it to stir up his base, like the immigration.
You just shifted.
By the way, as a former cheerleader for the NFL, are you upset over Trump's attack on NFL players?
This is about the wall. This is about the wall. You are. Oh my goodness.
This is wall.
Right now, technically, the NFL has paused any type of policy, right, that they have on kneeling during the anthem, which we saw the Dolphins and then the Cowboys make their own policy.
Yeah. Jerry Jones, though, has now got his own policy.
Exactly right.
How do you feel about Trump destroying ISIS, Juan?
I wish it was true.
It
has certainly become now a more polarized situation, and I think it did get too far at this point. But right now, the NFL and the NFLPA are sitting down in front of an independent arbiter, and they are hopefully coming to an agreement behind closed doors. And that's all we need to focus on now in terms of hoping that something can.
And can I say this, as an Eagles fan who hates the Dallas Cowboys, I loved hearing those Cowboys players say, we're America's team, and we will not be kneeling, we will be standing.
Good for them. All right.
Go Cowboys. Did I just say that? Oh, my God. Sorry.
Bite your tongue.
Where's the edit button?
All right. A stunning number of millennials walking away from cushy jobs, and they don't even